Hey everybody, it's Jack with Future Pastimes, and I'm a designer on Dune-themed games and expansions. And one of the most challenging things about teaching Dune to new players is that it is a game full of nuances. Now, the rules to learn how to play are actually pretty straightforward. It's not a hard game to learn, but there's a lot that is in the game that you don't actually know about when you're learning it unless you take the time to go through, for instance, the entire Treachery deck so that players know exactly what's in there. They won't know, for example, that there are certain unusual one-shot effects. They may say, great, I'm moving all of these forces into Escalating, and they're not paying attention to the fact that somebody has a single force adjacent to the shield wall while the storm is 2 sectors away from Escalating. So when the Family Atomics is played at the beginning of the next turn and then the storm moves, wiping out all of their forces, that can be a pretty major setback, and it's not something that they would necessarily have known about. Hopefully, in a game where there is a mix of new and old players, one of the experienced players would say, there's somebody is adjacent to the shield wall, and there's really only one good reason for that. And explaining that this is a possible effect, but that doesn't always happen. And if you have a group that's totally new to Dune, they probably haven't gone through and read all of the effects that are in the game and understand that. Now, there are other nuances. Like one of the common ones is the Ornithopter rule, where you don't have to control Carthag or Escalating. You just have to start your movement. Now, that's just a rule. It's one that's easy to forget, and it's one that a lot of people get wrong. And there are similar things that you could point to, but like I said, by and large, the rules to how to play the game are very straightforward. All of the phases have their specific things that go on. Many of them are very quick and easy to understand. We flip over a card, we put spice there, stuff like that. Although there are other nuances, even in the Spice Blow Nexus phase, like, a Shai Halud, or we had 3 in a row, and things like that. So there are many different little things, but I think that the major one is the Treachery deck. And so one of the things that I've started doing is I've got something that I call Escalating Treachery. And it uses the entire 50-card Treachery deck, which I like and I like to have in there. But it can be very overwhelming for new players. So what I've done is I've actually divided the Treachery deck up, and I introduce elements of it to the players. So I start off with a small set, and that includes weapons, defenses, and worthless cards. So just let's actually break it down here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to say 6. Yes, 6. So 3 of each. 3 poison weapons, 3 projectile weapons. So we've got Gam Jabbar, Chawmurky, and Chawmus. Those are our poison weapons. We have a Chris Knife, Maul, a pistol, and a slip tip. Those are our projectile weapons. And then we have an equal number of shields and snoopers. And then we have a certain number of worthless cards. So I like to start off with the Balisette Kulan and Trip to Command and Jubba Cloak. Those are the only cards that are in the Treachery deck at the start of the game. So your starting Treachery card is going to be one of those cards. And then for the first round of bidding, that's what you're bidding on. So players are going to get weapons and defenses. They're going to be able to get into the action very quickly. There will be some worthless cards in there to keep people on their toes. But this is very easy to understand. Weapons and defenses, and you're going to probably have some battles in that first turn because people will be armed. But they won't know if they have the right mix, and they won't know if their projectile weapon is going to be stopped by a shield. And if they have a snooper, they don't know if the other player's playing a poison weapon at all. It does make the Atreides prescience very powerful right from the get-go. It makes voice as powerful as it normally is. Then what happens is in the next bidding phase, in fact, at the beginning of that bidding phase, what I do is I say, here's what we're adding to the deck. So, and in that first one, we're going to add 3 cheap heroes. So we make sure that you understand how those work. We're going to add the Hajar card. So everybody knows what that does. We're going to add the Tleilaxu Gola card. There will probably be some leaders and forces in the tanks already by then. And a Karama, which introduced them to the 2 main effects on the card. and then the fact that it can be used for canceling advantages. Now these get shuffled into what is left of the Treachery deck. So that's just getting added in. Maybe those cards will be up at the next auction. Maybe they won't. But now players are understanding it. There's a little bit more in there. But it's all the stuff that's pretty easy to understand. Karama is probably the most advanced one on there. But it's only one of them. So just to spice it up a little bit. In the following round, we're going to introduce them to a few more cards. So one of the things we're adding in is we're going to add in 2 more weapons and 2 more defenses to keep things spicy. And we're going to add in our first special weapon, the laser gun. And we'll make sure that everybody understands that formula right there. Laser gun and shield equals kaboom. Both sides lose. So everyone understands how that works. Then we're going to add in weather control and family atomics, because it's high time that people know that these effects exist. And we'll enter in a truth trance. We're going to get into one truth trance. And when I'm teaching them, I go with the idea that it's not about locking people into future actions. It's about verifying stuff. And I talk about the WBC treatment of truth trance. That gets shuffled in. Once again, it's shuffled in. So again, those cards may come up, they may not. And then the following round, we're going to turn up the heat a little bit more. So we're going to add in 2 more special cards, special weapon, special defense. And these are the cards that can count as either in certain conditions. So we're just teaching them this. Once you understand weirding way chemistry is very easy to understand. It's just the defense analogous version. We're going to add in that second truth trance. So everyone's familiar with that. And then again, we have 3 more special Treachery cards. We're going to add in Harvester. Harvester is very easy to understand. Same thing with Thumper. Thumper is not complex, and neither is Amal. So we've got the game going. We're ready to add in a few more effects. Then we're going to go into our next one. So if the game hasn't ended yet, we're going to then add in some more cards. So we're going to start off with, we are adding in another defense of each type. And we're going to finally add in our last worthless card. Not our last one, but our next worthless card. And then we have a number of weapons. It's going to be 1 more of the normal poison projectile. And then 2 special ones. A poison tooth, so very thematic. Make sure people understand we're using the also the updated text from the Chomrich S expansion version of Poison Tooth, so we make sure people understand that. And now we're adding Artillery Strike. We'll let people understand how does this card work. It's got its own little nuances. For instance, that nobody collects spice for dead leaders. Doesn't matter how they were killed, whether I was protected by the shield, so the Artillery Strike didn't kill me, but I was poisoned. Still don't get spice for that. Those get shuffled in. They're added to the deck. And then after that, we have our last batch of Treachery cards that we're going to add in here. It is the last worthless card. It is the other Karama card. Very straightforward. We're going to add in the 3 cards from Expansion 3. So these are all special cards, but 2 of them do get put into your battle plan. So that's important to understand. And then, of course, the recruits. By now, we're going to want to probably try to get a lot of dead forces out of the tanks. That'll come in handy. And then our 2 most controversial and very powerful cards, Poison Blade, Shield, Snooper, how those work. And now they are added into the game, so they won't start off in there. And it's a good escalation. That's why I call it Escalating Treachery. You get the still good cards right from the get-go. Weapons and defenses, that's really what it's all about. But you're adding in the special effect ones later on, and you're acquainting people. So people will have had a turn to get these cards, bid on them, look at them, see what they do, maybe use some of them in action, or at least probably see them in action by other factions. And then you'll get a chance to acquaint yourself with new effects that are in the deck without having to worry about what's not in the deck yet. So you're building on what the players already have seen and understand, and then you're adding in new effects so that they know, okay, we're adding weather control. So that means that we've been used to this idea that the storm at most is going to move 6 sectors, but If somebody has weather control, they can push that up to 10 sectors. They could not move the storm at all. So that's going to have an impact on storm order, as well as the vulnerability of forces and spice out in the desert. And with also the addition of family atomics, we do have to keep our eyes on the shield wall to see if anybody is there snooping around and potentially planting family atomics to be set off at the beginning of a subsequent game turn. So that is that, and I think it's actually, even if you're not teaching new players, or maybe you only have one new player, or somebody who's played it, but maybe it's been a while, I think it's still a pretty good approach to using the Treachery deck. It makes the game, while it's never truly predictable, but a little bit easier to digest and get into it. And by the time you are adding in the special weapons like Artillery Strike and Poison Tooth and Poison Blade, you've gotten to the point where those effects might be necessary to push somebody over to the edge of finally being able to win the game. Because at that point, it's gone on a few turns. And you are taking time at the start of each bidding round to familiarize everyone with the new cards, although that should only take about a minute. And then people can ask questions about that, which is good, because that's when you can have an open discussion with everybody. Nobody's got the card, and they haven't bought the card and like, oh, I don't know what this does. I need to ask a question. And now I'm giving away information that I probably wouldn't want anybody to know about. But I think it makes it a little more manageable. And it's better, I think, than saying, let's go through this 50-card deck at the start of the game while you're also trying to learn everything else. It's a good division of where you're going to put your brain power in terms of trying to figure out, do I understand what I'm doing while I'm playing it? Because I'm also looking at all of these faction advantages in addition to the normal step-by-step of the rules. Like, oh, I have to ship before I move. That's a rule. I got to remember that. And the battle plans are in storm order. The aggressor is determined by storm order, not by who is attacking whom in which stronghold, which a lot of people for decades have been playing wrong. So it's a game of many nuances. And the nuances, though, I think, and I would argue, are part of what makes the game great. It is not a dry, flat Euro game. And I'm not saying Euro games are dry and flat, but there are some that are. And it's because they're trying to take all of the nuance out and just make it strictly about the balance of the mechanisms in the game. And that's also not really a criticism, because I enjoy those games as well. But for a thematic game like Dune, you have to have the nuances. It's really what dials it up to 11. So let me know your thoughts on Escalating Treachery. And if you have had any extra special things that you do to help people get used to the nuances of the game and its rules, I will have more to talk about in terms of the nuances of Dune and how to overcome them as you're trying to teach it or learn it moving forward. That's it for this one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again soon.